Hi and welcome to Women in Business. This is episode 5. It's very exciting. I am currently joined after several tech issues by the lovely Suzy.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having
Suzy,
me.
sorry, now I've talked over the top of you. It's a great start. This is just going to be one of those days. Maybe we should just breathe and start again. Or we can just run with it.
Let's run with it.
Okay. So, Suzy is with Starbright Wonderland, which sounds a little bit like a fairy castle, but is actually the most incredible photography studio with a difference. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why Starbright Wonderland? There's obviously some mystery with the name.
There is. I was originally under my married name, Suzy Jones Photography. I was Little Jones Photography for a while, and I wanted something that really just captured the kind of the essence of what I was doing. And in short, I photographed the night sky. And I look at the night sky. I try and get a beautiful landscape. I get usually the Milky Way core. Sometimes it's star trails. Sometimes it's comets or constellations. But then the real magic is I put people in it. And I want to take a beautiful picture of a person or a couple in the most natural environment, looking at the night sky or just with the night sky behind them, and just capture people, nature, landscape. That's it. Strip entirely back to basics, no props. I say nothing fancy, but there's a lot of fancy camera work going on and a bit of trickery. But that's it. People, nature, capturing the best of it and merging it together.
That sounds incredible. And having seen some of your work, guys, you've got to see this. I'll put a link below. Yeah. But having seen some of this work, it is absolutely beautiful. And you work for yourself. Has that been going on for a long time? Is this a new thing, an old thing, always been the thing?
I was thinking about this morning, actually, how I'd never had the real desire to own and run a business, but I really had an idea about how I wanted to work. And that doesn't necessarily fit in with the traditional 9-to-5 kind of model or the background mining. So didn't really work in with that. And I had this idea that I wanted to choose when I worked.
Right.
I wanted to have a good work-life balance, a genuinely good one, where I was enjoying everything. Basically, I wanted it all. I wanted that thing that they said you could have, right? You're a woman, you can have a family, you can have a career, you can do it all, you can have it all and be it all. Great. That's really hard to find.
Sounds like a solo ad.
I know, doesn't it? But that's really hard to find. And I just felt for the longest time that it was possible. And I had to find it. And most of that came through networking, meeting other women or other people who were doing things differently and thinking outside of the box. I know it's a cliche. I'm sorry, but it works in this situation. So the business came about because I just wanted to share what I was doing, and I wanted to live the life that I wanted to live and provide my family the life that I wanted to provide them. And it sort of merged. Yeah.
So you mentioned mining, but touched on it, skipped over it and hoped we weren't listening. You obviously didn't start, I'm assuming, with a comment like that from a photography background. So
no.
How did you do the traditional, oh yes, I have to have a real job and a career and I have my education and look, I'm walking the path, Mum?
No, I didn't. I dropped out. So I from the beginning didn't feel normal, in the sense that I don't think normal was a very good word. I don't like using it, but I didn't fit in to stereotypical neurotypicalness.
So we didn't take the bell curve and go, put Suzy there.
So I went through school thinking, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. I loved geology. I didn't know it was geology at the time. I loved it. So where I grew up, there's a big chalk quarry it was never in operation when I was growing up. It had closed down long before that. But from the freeway, you could see a big chalk cliff. And I remember thinking, I wonder if sea level was higher, because I knew about sea level changes and just putting things together. I love looking for fossils in the chalk. I knew of the Jurassic coast on the south coast of England, and we'd been down there looking for ammonites and things. So that has always been there. That was not an option at school. It was very much, I grew up in the Tony Blair era in the UK where everyone has to go to uni. And that was going to be the key to prosperity for everyone, was to push everyone down the same path, which doesn't work at all. So my schooling was very much, you should go to uni, but not really much, not much direction about what that would look like or what the outcome after it would be. And so I went to college and I dropped out because I was like, I don't like this. screw it. This is not what I want to do. And I went and I worked as a travel agent for a year or so. And then I actually got headhunted from there, sort of, by one of the clients. I didn't book a holiday for them because I couldn't meet their needs. They had an age range from 2 to about 90. They needed disabled access. They needed so much that I was like, I can do it for you for about £9,000. And they said, we got an offer for 2,000. So I was like, oh, great, have a great time. And she phoned me back the next day and said, oh, I know you didn't sell us the holiday, but I loved how you handled that. Would you like a job? And she owned a locum recruitment company, so employing doctors. And I ended up going there, and I just had this nagging feeling in the back of my head. I want to go wander around in somewhere outdoors looking at rocks. So
whatever that is.
So I looked up I was like, oh, geology, that's what it's called. So I looked up geology. I looked up how to get into the university course. Mm-hmm. And in the UK, there's something called an access course. I think it's very similar here, where if you haven't finished school with all those ATAR thingies, you can go and catch up, basically. So I enrolled in the year, and I phoned my mum like, hey, Mum, I'm going to school. I'm going to go to uni. Okay.
She's gone, hang on.
Yeah. Hang on. Like, how are you paying for it? Did you do the application for funding? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. I'm just going to go to uni. It'll be fine. So Mum did.
Yeah, trust me, I've got this.
She's like, okay, this is what you need to do. But I went in, and truth be told, the first year of uni, I was a bit like, not taking it as seriously as I should have been. And then the next year came, I'm like, oh, this is so great. And I loved it. And I just wanted to wander around all the time. Again, looking at rocks and licking rocks, because we love doing that,
absolutely.
Don't we?
Yep.
And didn't have much idea what to do with that after. And there's not much geology in the UK, not much geology work. And some people came in at the end of, they were actually doing a presentation about a seismic company, and they were just down the road, and they were looking for third-year interns. Mm-hmm. And I went to the presentation at the end. I'm like, well, I'm at the end of my third year now. I'm looking for a job, and got offered the job.
Nice.
So somehow I ended up working on seismic vessels, which was fantastic. So again,
because they do tend to be in the middle of the ocean, which is a great place. Lots of nature. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, again, phone up Mum. Hey, Mum, I'm going to West Africa. So
she's gone,
I'm going to Lagos. Where? Next week. Okay. Why? Good job. And just ended up. And I spent the next few years wandering around a few different places doing seismic, which is geophysics, which I did not learn much about in my degree in geology. And then decided to move to Australia. Another phone call. Hey, Mum, I booked a flight going to Australia. So my poor parents. But it's fun. But I really just wanted not the geophysics. I wasn't passionate about that. I really wanted to be on the ground, and that was really where moving to Australia came in. Was I moved over, wanted to get a job working in gold or diamonds.
The glamour industries.
The glamorous industries. I would have loved in the first stages of exploration. I think that would have been. It
was my favourite thing.
Yeah, where I would have really enjoyed it. But the mining was just crashing at the time, and there was mass layoffs. So I stayed in oil and gas. And I did that up until I got pregnant with my first baby, when I stopped going offshore. Started a master's degree, did that. But it turns out it's really hard to go offshore when you've got a newborn. So, yeah, that's not going to work. And where we were located, and a whole bunch of other reasons, I didn't end up going back into that immediately. But I was still doing photography. And I always felt like the landscape photography and studying geology are basically two parts of the same interest. Yeah. And I loved looking at it and taking a picture of it and then trying to understand it and think about how it formed. And that's the same thing in my mind. That's really similar. So they really stem from the same area. And I still feel, even though I actually got how the photography started, was I was putting it on Instagram, and I started getting phone calls from people. One of whom was a visit manager saying, can we buy some of your images? And I'm like, yeah, like $5. And they went, that's not sustainable. Like, you need to be looking at a business model, and this is the going rate. It was so good. Oh, thank you. So I ended up pretty much getting mentored by a lady there who was covering maternity leave. I thought, that's brilliant. I love that. Thank you. And through traveling and meeting people, I ended up meeting quite a few fairly influential people in photography, and that got me working as a travel photographer for 2 years, traveling around WA with my kids in tow, which was handy because then I could get pretty family pictures to sell to the brochures.
How often do you see the photographs of an environment such as Madra or some beautiful place, and it's all of the beautiful and none of the people connection. How are we using the space? How are we connecting it to? So that would have been, the first start of what a great idea.
Yeah, and it was fun, and it didn't necessarily come naturally to me to put people in pictures. I wasn't that interested because I just wasn't interested unless it was my own kid. I'm like, nah, whatever.
The nice thing is you don't press releases for your own kids.
Yeah, I know. But it was easy with my own, but the interest in people really became as I think I grew with myself, and I grew more confident in myself, happier to put myself out there, happier to be photographed, happier to speak my own voice and things like that, and then to connect with people in a more genuine way, which I don't think I was necessarily doing before. So with that connection, and all I think about is connection when I'm taking a picture. I want to get the connection. I want to actually capture that feeling, how they are feeling, how they're interacting with each other, and then immortalize it so that in 100 years' time, when their great-great-grandchildren look at this picture and go, oh, look at all my great-grandparents, they were such losers, because we all think that. But they're like, oh, they were so soppy, or, that's what it's all about. So really, the putting people in it came secondary. Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing with you saying that and hearing that journey, because it's literally doors are opening, those ones are closing. This is not my choice. What do I do next? And that's often how we leave that corporate space. It's just the whole, this is crap. This is sucks. This is not what I want to do. And then again, as you're saying, that empowerment also, to use an overused word, but that empowerment of going, actually, you know what, I can do what I want my way. I don't have to follow those steps. I don't have to do that plus the half a dog and 2.5 kids and the car and and buy the house and do the stuff. I can travel. And I think in this day and age, that versatility or that flexibility is really quite an awesome thing. But what struck me as funny then was when you said looking back at your grandparents and soppy, and I'm wondering if our great grandkids are actually going to look back at your photographs and go, what are those things in the sky? And the amount of light pollution we have and the way we're building our cities in a way that's not as sustainable as perhaps it could be, is that, you go, oh, look, 2 young people. Oh, wow, what are those things? And the memorialization is really the dimensions in the sky, which goes with it. Not to detract from your very connected and beautiful work with the people, but...
But it's funny you should say that, because light pollution is such a big problem, and it's becoming more and more of a problem, and harder to find genuine dark skies. And we think we might look outside and go, oh, it's pretty dark tonight, but the second you expose for a little bit longer, you start to get a lot of refraction of town light off the dust in the atmosphere and things. So how far away you are from town, you can be quiet for 100 kilometers, you're still getting light pollution from a town. And from mines and all sorts of things. And I think light pollution is probably one of the types of pollution we think least about for 2 reasons. Firstly, we utilize light, we appreciate it, we want it. At nighttime, when you're walking down the street, you're probably not going to be comfortable if it's pitch black. So we like that kind of light. Secondly, although I was going to say it doesn't have negative impact, it does, because it affects our circadian rhythm. But it's not like noise or the obvious things like plastic in the oceans, things like that are very
dusts and
so those are big forms of pollution. But it's recently becoming much more known that light pollution is affecting things like sea turtle nesting and bird migration and all sorts of things, where it's having huge impacts. And it's something that I've become quite interested in and will probably look to get involved in promoting or raising awareness of, because it's fascinating. And we're in quite a unique area in the world where we are in WA, because we do have such a lot of vast untouched area, or lightly touched. It doesn't we still have a lot of agriculture, but
we haven't completely trashed it yet.
We haven't completely trashed all of it. We do have some beautiful pristine wildlife and areas. And it's amazing how, like I said, the colour of the night sky changes depending on what pollutants are in the sky and where you are and how far away over the horizon the next light source is. So, all
right, we're going to grab a quick break because, of course, sponsors are incredibly important, as you can appreciate, in a small business. So we'll grab a quick break, and then I'm going to talk about perhaps the impact of actually choosing that change in corporate had.
Mm.
I must admit, I absolutely love bringing the Women in Business show to you all. We have these great conversations with people, but you can't do these things alone, much like so much in small business. Going it alone, like the old African proverb says, you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. And as a result, we've partnered with Lance Hall from eBats Accounting. Now, Lance, I use him personally. He's absolutely awesome. He's definitely your better business accountant. If you're looking for someone you can actually have those conversations with, sometimes those uncomfortable conversations that you just think, oh, geez, I actually haven't had my best year ever. But I don't want anyone to judge me on that. Or you're going, you know what, actually, I've had an awesome year and I'd love to know what comes next. Lance is absolutely the best person to have that conversation with. So if you want to catch up with him, book that free consultation. You can do that by going to www.ebats.au. There's a page there. Select new business. Tell Lance that we sent you, so that Women in Business sent you, or Jackie sent you. One of the two, he'll get the message. He'll give you great service, and you can see where that goes from there. Welcome back. We have been discussing with the lovely Suzy a bit of the change from corporate land, going from a kind of non-traditional female role even. So similar to my background, that whole, we are in this space and we're surrounded by boys and a very male-dominated industry. And it's a case of, I think, when you hold your own in that space, you do get a certain amount of confidence, I guess.
Gumption.
Gumption.
Yes.
Gumption. Excellent. So working in a seismic space, what was your proportion of sort of kind of girls to guys in that ratio?
I spent half my time on seismic vessels, half my time on oil rigs. Mm-hmm. The seismic vessels had somewhere between 45 and 60 people on board. Yep. The majority of the time I was the only female.
Yep.
And then oil rigs would be up to about 120, maybe 140, and again, sometimes only female.
Yeah, I've been the same thing. Mining camps, the same thing, especially green camps from construction point of view. You've got 60, 70, 80 guys and on site, and the only person's me. And you become mum and counsellor, and I'm taking my arms off. That's fine. How is this my problem? So how did you find working in that environment? Was there anything in there which shaped your decision to choose to run your own business, or was that purely family needing something different?
I burnt out in it. I was absolutely exhausted by the end of having to fight every single decision. Everything that came out of my mouth, I had to back up 20, 30 times to be taken seriously. The one that I always go back to in my head is being told that I'm not allowed to work outside today because they're climbing ladders, and it's unsafe for a woman to climb a ladder.
What, they'd step your skirt?
Yeah, in case I tripped over my skirt, which ironically, the coveys they ordered were all huge. I mean, my legs on them would be a foot too long, but I wasn't allowed to cut them because a reflective strip was below that. So you couldn't cut your own coveys. I had to keep them long, and gloves. They only had size like XXL gloves, and I got little hands.
You're right. You are a hazard.
I'm a hazard, and it was ridiculous. And I just became very disenfranchised with the promotion of safety that wasn't genuinely safe. It was, we've created this wonderful PDF, and at one point, I actually had the PDF emailed to me when I said, in response to the ladder incident, I'm like, "Come on, guys," to my managers. We need to address this. I need to be treated as an equal partner or an equal person in our team, because otherwise they're taking on more workload. Why not just share it equally? I'll play my part. We can all just get along. And the response was, "Look at this email we've created. I've attached it." I'm like, "Oh, great. But can we implement that? Can we?"
Yeah.
So I found it exhausting, and I found they would really cherry pick one or two women to push up the corporate ladder and say, "Look, we have a woman here. Tick, how great." But it wasn't genuine, and there wasn't genuine support. I did find, depending on which rig I went on, the ones that did have more women, some of them would have maybe 20, most of that had disappeared. So it really did come down to the mindset of the senior people on the rig, and that trickling down through everybody else.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're quite a bit younger than I am, I guess. And I was on rigs when I was in my early 20s, but only for a short period of time. And there was 4 women on board, two geophysicists, the same as, geophysicists as we used to call them. You give them a heap of rubbish because, of course, all you're doing is making up numbers about things you actually can't see, so whatever. And the other 2 were geologists. Engineering, nothing. All our Derek guys, nothing. None of the physical work was carried out by women. But we're talking 30 and a bit years ago. And a lot of the engineering side of things, which have now taken a lot of that manual handling out, weren't part of it. So I couldn't lift. I physically couldn't lift the end of the drill string. It's got, and mind you, when you get to really big equipment, that gets removed because it's really that middle-sized stuff, the stuff which is on the edge of what I can lift versus the guys can lift it much more easily. But the really heavy stuff, if nobody can lift. So it was
and you're not allowed to anyway now.
No. But 30 years ago, really, the physicality of the role really did preclude me at 5'2", from a lot of things. But the scientific side of things, we had a really interesting team along that stage because when we got there, we arrived actually as a pack of 4. Yeah. So they'd never had a girl on board before, and suddenly there was this pack of 4, as you can imagine, reasonably, arrogant's the wrong word, but we had this conversation about what we were expecting to walk into. And we were sort of kind of a case study almost, and we felt like that. We felt like a tick, a bit of a, oh, look, we have girls, this is the environment. And it's like, really? Okay, but you know what? If you're going to friggin' put us up on a poster, look out.
Yes.
And I think almost looking back on some of the things now, that pendulum, there was that pendulum swing to the extreme, and I'm wondering, sometimes we do get those big pendulums and they sort of kind of come back. But it did settle, but not immediately. There was that real head which went with it. But I think if we'd gone alone, I sometimes wonder, would we have been better off? Because I've never taken a lot of shit from people anyway. But I wonder what that would have been if we hadn't been that little poster child, almost type thing. And again, a lot of that was the only time I actually experienced that within a mining and exploration. And I'm wondering if, because I dealt with it then, I then made a decision of how I was going to show up when I ended up in hard rock mining, and because I was the iron ore, I wasn't the glamorous gold, which is actually more complicated than gold when you get into the geology of it, because you're controlling on 5 elements or 6 elements, not the single. But that's for another day. But it's interesting how that changes. And then I was residential, expression in residential, which of course is a completely different dynamic, but still coloured the way that I chose to then go into my own business. So it's interesting, isn't it? I wonder how many. You hear a lot of stories about, I got so fed up with doing the corporate, I decided to do it for myself.
Oh, absolutely. And that really did happen for me. I got absolutely sick of not being heard, but knowing that I was good at something. And I was pretty good at it. I was really good at it. I did my master's degree and got a distinction when my husband at the time was working FIFO. He was away most of the time. He was also going through mental health issues and spent the rest of his time in a psychiatric hospital, and I had a newborn baby. And got a master's degree with a distinction. So I was like, if I can do this without support and no family in this country, what the hell could I do if I was supported? Imagine that. But no one would give me the chance at the time. But I used to have to fight for my time off. And I remember getting threatened with a written warning when I defended my contractual right to have time off after 28 days offshore. And I was going to be sent back after 1 day to a different 28-day swing on a different rig. And saying, no, this isn't okay. I need downtime, and I'm actually entitled to it. Say, well, we're going to write you a written warning then. Okay.
On what grounds?
So go for it. I look forward to receiving your email. Of course, it never came because they didn't have grounds for it.
No. But why the need to threaten?
It very much was that mentality.
Considering the general brain space, mind space, mental space, whatever you want to call it, of women within any industry, if they'd have come to you and they said, so look, we know you've got like a whole bunch of time off, and look, we get that we're asking you to do something non-contractual. We're screwed. We actually need we actually need your help because we've got this and we can't cover it, and can we shift you around? Is that okay? That whole, to be cliche, mothering instinct, need to want to be part of that team. You possibly would have gone, look, if you can give me 3 or 4 days to rearrange the world, get my shit together. Sure, okay, send me
I can
out.
help you out.
Yeah,
then. Yeah.
but it's a different approach.
It's
And
such
that
a
was
different
probably
approach.
the driver, because not that they needed extra people over there. They were stuck.
Oh, they had poor management. They hadn't arranged it, and they'd booked in more clients for more rigs. Things had turned around, and they didn't have the people to fulfill the roles. That's not my problem. It's certainly not my problem to put myself at risk.
No.
And take on safety issues because I'm fatigued going back offshore and going on to the opposite 12 hours and then working around oil rig equipment.
It wasn't like they'd ask you to sit in the office and just, look, can you just proofread these reports for us so we can get another door?
Yes, it was very different. And I was ready to leave and ready to take back some control of my life. But it was a control I always felt like I had. For some reason, and I can't put my finger on it, I never felt like I was ever going to fit in to a traditional 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, sitting in an office waiting to retire. That did not sit very comfortable with me.
Sounds horrible.
And it still doesn't. Like I never had this idea that you just work to earn money. Like, you have to have joy in your life somewhere. I'm not saying you have to love every day, because at the end of the day, we all still have to do accounting and stuff.
And if we want to love every day, why do we run our own businesses? Because that's just pure insanity. But
pure insanity. There's so much to running your own business, but I loved it. And then I met other people, and that was the trick. That was the key to it all. There's a lovely lady called Claire who runs a podcast called Sprinkles and Sprouts, and I went along to her mother's networking thing one morning, and she's like, "Oh, I've got a blog, and I have." She said her goal was, I think, 100,000 page views a month, and she was currently going at 1.5 million a month. And working only term time. So she only works 40 weeks a year. And I'm like, whoa.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me? So, did you say what now? And
you were saying you wrote stuff on a computer, right? And only,
And she was amazing. I'm not sure how much of that I should have divulged, actually. But I was so inspired by this woman. And then I met a few others.
But running a blog is not easy work. Let's be clear.
It's a huge amount of work.
Huge. And it takes over your life. And it doesn't, even if you put borders around it, it can take over your life. So all credit, this woman is working hard, but when she chooses to.
Yes.
And leveraging it and actually making a difference. And people are engaging with it in a way that is impactful for their lives and making a difference in their lives. She's sharing her knowledge in a space that people go, thank you so much, I need this.
Exactly. And it was amazing. And then I met a few others. I met other photographers and I met other businesswomen. And I had this idea. I wanted to do the Mumpreneur 101 course that the City of Mandurah was running. And for years, I'm like, I can't connect with that word. I cannot connect with that word because I'm not, like, my job title should not be defined by my domestic role at home.
I know.
It was such a disconnect. I could not put it together.
Yep.
And after a while, and I spoke to the lady who facilitated it, Belle Lockerbie, I'm like, I really want to do your course, but I have an issue with this term. And we spoke on the phone. She's like, actually, I understand, because she comes from a mining background too. She said, I get it. And a lot of and I ended up enrolling in the course, and it was eye-opening. And I'm thinking, why am I busting my gut to get back into the resources industry that had no respect for me, that used us like a toy, just throwing us onto different places, and all these other people, but they're doing it different. They're not running a business like a man. They're not running it and going, we need hustle culture, which is so incredibly toxic. Saying if you run a business, you're definitely going to have to work 80 to 90 hours a week, and it's hard, and you're going to lose money for 3 years.
Yeah, you're not going to make any money for the first thing. So why can't I make money from day one? Why? Yeah. Why? Tell me why.
Exactly. And I met all these women, and suddenly I'm like, hold up. I get the mumpreneur thing, because that's a badge of honor. Actually, that's not I'm an entrepreneur, but I can only work 3 hours a week because I have kids and they're going to interrupt me in phone calls. Actually, it's that woman can be on the phone talking about something really in depth with a client, and her kids interrupted her, and she's sorted out. She hasn't lost her thought process, and she's kept going. And there's something else that's distracting happened, and she's kept going. And she can do all those things at the same time. She can work evenings, or she can. I was on the train the other day. I took my kids up to the Museum of WA, and on the way back I was on my phone, and I heard someone go, oh, look at all these people on their phone. And I thought, you know what, I just sent $1,000 worth of invoices and replied to a few emails, but I spent the whole day with my kids. And instead I could have put them in vacation care the entire day and not spent the day with them and sat there at an office typing away in a computer.
Or you could have shattered them up there, so they're all lying on the train going, they got half dozy anyway, while you're just knocking out a few whatevers, and you could then go have the evening with them.
They weren't even paying attention to me. They were looking out the window, and I'm like, oh, I'll reply to this, I'll do this. And I love that. And that's the power. And I think that's where women are really driving change now, is to say, I want to be in business and I'm going to be successful and I am going to earn multiple six figures and I'm going to pay off my mortgage and I'm going to have good investments and I'm going to have great super and I'm going to do it on my terms. And that's the power there. Yeah, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, going to grab a quick break again. But when we come back, I would love to talk more about why astro portraits and why the connection, what's actually going on there. Because taking photographs of landscapes and rocks is great, and there's a huge amount, I suppose, the market's out there, but that's because the appetite for that type of image is huge. But why the different things? So as well as Women in Business, I have a membership, which is just one of my favourite things to do in the world, where we have a group of women and a few men, mostly women, who come together and assist each other within a community to become leaders within their space. So if you'd like to join us, our membership opens soon. We've got a wait list. I'd love to see you come on board. You can either pop across and join our Facebook group, which is Amplify Your Audience. There'll be a link below. And if you'd like to join the membership, we also have a bit of a wait list. We only open just 3 times a year. So the wait list for that is currently running, and I'd love you to pop over to the Arcamarai website, which is www.arcamarai, and I'll spell it arcamarai.com.au. There'll be a button right there on my homepage, and it'll say join the waitlist, and then we'll get you in that sequence, and you'll know immediately that that opens again. And we're back with the lovely Suzy. We have been talking about her changing from corporate to her own business and the empowerment that comes with that and the why that comes with that. But that business itself is incredible and also really, really supports those ideas and the values which go with that decision and with that change. So, Suzy, the astro side of things I get, because stars are awesome. People I get, but bringing them together, I've not seen that before.
No, and I've seen a few pictures on Instagram, but I've done my research. I don't like that term, but I've done my research. And I haven't found anyone doing it commercially, offering it as a service. So as far as I know, I'm the only person definitely in Australia doing it.
So the other thing to put in tag in there, if I can interrupt you, is even if there's other people taking people and stars, the why of your business makes it different. And my thing about when I do a whole bunch of coaching with small businesses is the why we do what we do is a point of differentiation, because you can't be copied, because people aren't doing things for the same reason. So the feeling's going to be different. The purpose is going to be different. The result is going to be different. So your why is so critical there, which of course is that connection. If I'm remembering back from the big first section. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Interruption over.
That's okay. Yeah. So I never started to do them for other people. The whole idea was I had the idea when I was pregnant with my first one. And I'd started astrophotography and I'd wandered around in the outback and pointed the camera at the sky and got nothing. And tried again.
But I got nothing. Look at Instagram, they've got amazing things. Yeah.
And at the time I was opening magazines, and some magazines will put the camera settings. Okay, I'm copying those exact camera settings. Why is mine not looking like that? It's because camera settings is only a part of it, and then the post-processing is a huge part of it. And you'll find, I haven't really found any magazines or anything that will do both. They will do one side or the other. If they're doing a tutorial, it will be on the processing or on the taking the picture. So I found that a little disheartening for a while. But I just had this idea, this drive to keep doing it. And eventually it clicked and I got it right. And then I went to a few workshops to finesse a few things. Okay, I've got this now. And then I just went and got better and better. And I think all astrophotographers start just with the Milky Way core and just a picture of that, nothing else in the frame. And then you expand a bit and you're like, foreground, I'll stick something there. But it's not a well-composed image. You've just put something in the foreground. Yeah. And then you try and compose the full image. Cool, now it's looking a bit better. Then comes the light painting. Which I have some opinions on light painting.
Yeah, I suggest from your face that we have similar opinions. But carry on, please.
I think I was down at Lake Clifton once and this guy turned up with this enormous torch. He's like, look how bright this is. And it was just a dead straight beam of light, almost like a laser, shot in the entire length of Lake Clifton. The light of 1,000 candles or 1,000,000 candles or something. I don't care. It was horrendous. And I just, everyone else there, so it's giving the look. Could you just turn that off, please? You're ruining our images. But light painting can be done really well, but you can't do it with a bright torch. And I know that now, but I'm going to come back to that in a bit. So once I started getting the landscape and the night sky and getting it all together, I was like, ooh, what next? Okay, what's the challenge? Because I'm a glutton for pain and I like to just frustrate myself beyond anything that is sensible and go, I'm going to have this idea and I'm going to stand out in the cold of 2 degrees at 2 o'clock in the morning somewhere random in the outback on my own until I get this right. And I would do that and get home and find the pictures are terrible and have to do it again. But then I was pregnant and I just had this very strong feeling of connection with, it's pretty amazing what the human body does, what the woman does. And you take this tiny little cell and it turns into more cells and then it turns into a human with opinions and a soul and like a personality, and it's a real thing. It's amazing. And I just think the idea that we can create life is absolutely incredible. But when we're looking at the night sky, quite often we're looking at nebulas, which are star-forming areas. And actually, in our stars, usually we have, or was it the beginning of the universe, we had oxygen, helium, hydrogen, I forget, but it's only 4 elements, and the rest are formed in dying stars, which exploded and sent all these complex, heavy elements out into the universe. And I was like, there's a bit of a correlation here between I'm taking one thing and I'm growing a little life, but out there we're looking at the stars and they're creating the atoms that we need to make the life. I felt just such a connection to it. So I thought, I'm going to take a picture of myself. So I waddled.
Self-portrait astro, middle of the desert, and got it. Okay,
it was on top of Wave Rock, and it was
nothing could have gone wrong then. Though I appreciate through your past career, you've already have complete disrespect for safety, so that's fine.
Yes, I know. I'm totally walking off the edge every time. But so up there with my ex-husband, and our daughter was 1.5, and we took the pram up there so she could go to sleep.
Nothing can possibly go wrong.
Nothing can go wrong here. And we'd been camping and I had my hair in rollers and I had full makeup on, which looks very strange when you're out in the bush camping, and took the tripod up and I took a picture and it lined up beautifully. Actually, I did very well there, but it was not a good image. And of course, the first time I tried it with me just standing there, standing still for 10 seconds. So no matter how hard you try and stand still, your heart's still beating, you're still breathing, there's movement in your body, so it's not a clear image. And we tried some light painting and I lit up like a ghost. It was quite funny. It looked like I was glowing. And anyway, we tried it and then tried again down at Heron Point. No, it wasn't. It was Island Point Reserve was the second time. So, this isn't working. Heron Point was the third time. And by that point, I was several days overdue.
Right.
And the lineup of the Milky Way meant that it was at a good position at 2 a.m. So we took the swag down. I got my doctor's permission. A previous appointment, like, hey, I want to go camping in the swag in the bush. And he's like, where? So, well, technically, from my house to the hospital is about 25 minutes. And from there to the hospital is about 25 minutes. So it'll be fine. And again, put my hair up in rollers and put my makeup on. And I went to sleep and I woke up having not moved and waddled out into the estuary with my flash on my on a remote and just took pictures. They're still terrible. Did not get it. But I kept trying and trying and trying. So all of my astro maternity or astro portraits are not good. I've never shared them because they're horrendous. And I couldn't even...
But they're still a memory. There's a story that goes with them. You see them and you remember, and it evokes the idea, it evokes the journey, it evokes the disappointment and the joy and all the things, even though they're not... Okay, you wouldn't necessarily display them in our next exhibition. You would certainly look at them and remember.
Yes.
which of course is part of the purpose of photography.
That's the whole purpose.
Good or bad.
Yeah, I see it as very much a time capsule, and I really feel it. And I can look at something, and everything else goes quiet and still. And like pictures of my grandma who passed about 14 years ago, I can look at that, and I'm still. I can hear her voice, and you feel how you feel when they talk to you, and I love that. That's what I want to do for other people, and that's sort of where it came in with the astro maternity. Then was to say, oh, I want to do this for other people. This would be great. Of course, I didn't start there because
currently quality of product not proud of. Yes, got it.
Yes, but also it was, is anyone going to want it? And of course, people buy family photography and newborns. So why don't I try and do every single genre of photography first? Not a good idea. Well, I did. I bounced around for about 2 years, trying everything, taking on every job that came my way because I'm like, yes, I need reviews and I need experience and I need more stuff to put on Instagram. But I was exhausted, and it wasn't actually until I did the application for the Alcoa Appeal Business Awards and I looked at all of the time that I was spending and where I was putting my effort and where I was making the money and went, 4% of my clients are Astro Portrait, but they made up 76% of my income.
Wow.
And I thought,
work less, earn more.
Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Why am I doing that? But again, I was too worried to make that jump on my own. And this is where you can get some really terrible business advice. I asked a few people, they said, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You can't do this, you can't do that. In narrowing down too much, whereas actually with a business, you need to be very niche. The more niche you are, the better.
Yeah.
And if you can talk to that client and connect with that client, that's where you need to be. There's no point trying to be the jack of all trades because no one's going to think you're an expert in anything.
Yeah. Can we just dwell on that for a second? Because so often we hear the whole, but if you niche down, you're going to leave all the money on the table. You're going to miss the clients. Nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to do anything else. And yet you found most successfully by complete accident, again, doing that business review. And I would highly encourage everybody to do some sort of annual review, be it from awards or for something, because it gives you those benchmarks. But doing that, you discovered, because of course a lot of us just don't look at our numbers because we're doing what we're doing, we just look for the money. It brings me joy, because earning money is actually okay. It's just energy moving around. If you don't earn it, you can't spend it. But interestingly, when you actually had a look at those numbers, you've gone, hang on a minute, a fraction of the work I do is producing a huge amount proportionally of my income.
Yeah.
So was the assumption that if you then got more of these guys, you'd get more of this?
Yeah, so then I was thinking, say if I have this many hours a week and I have 20 hours a week and I'm putting 2 hours a week into Astro Portraits and 18 hours into everything else.
Yes.
But that 18 hours is earning me less than the 2 hours of Astro Portraits. So how about if I take that 2 hours and make that 10 hours? Does it increase exponentially? And it sort of has. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it took the confidence to do it. And I had the idea. I asked some people, everyone's like, oh, don't do it. It's too niche. And then I discovered the IPS Business Advisory. And I came in and I spoke to them and they were like, yes, it's common sense. And then I asked a few other people who were running successful businesses.
Yeah.
And they said, yes, it's common sense. You need to do that.
And that's the difference between getting advice from other small business owners who are succeeding versus friends, family, all the things who just go, that's not logical. It doesn't make sense. You should be for everybody. It's like, no, I'm not running Kmart.
Exactly.
You can either make $3 or $4 off a billion things or $1 billion off a few things.
Yeah. And that's really where, when I went into my pricing, like,
get your life back, which is the whole purpose of what you were doing to start with. And that's why so many of us choose to run small businesses. It's like, I don't like doing it that way. I don't want to do that. I want to do this.
Exactly.
But of course, we've all got big financial backers, and it doesn't matter if our businesses succeed, does it? We've got someone else to pay the bills.
If only. I would love that. But that's not the case. And it's really important. Going back to money, it's so important you price yourself well. So there's a few things I think women in business need a reminder of. Firstly,
let's call it like this. We suck at.
We need to be reminded constantly that our time is valuable and it has value, and that value can be a dollar amount. We do not need to give anything away for free, ever. No. We are brought up in such a way that we are expected to be kind and loving and nurturing. And when I first started, and one of my very good friends, Fee, laughed at me when I said this, and she's a photographer as well, but she's several years more advanced in her career, her photography career. So I really want to be able to give away and do some free shoots for people who are feeling really down and needing empowering. She said, why free? So, because I want to do it for free. And a lot of us have this idea that you have to give and you're not a good person unless you're giving. And she said, but how can you give if you're not earning money?
Yeah, you've got to have
You need to earn money to be able to give. That's where it comes from.
Pro bono clients, that's great.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you tick that pro bono box. And it could be that you're involved in a cause or involved in an empowerment or whatever that is. But you've got to offset that with people who are paying full ticket.
Yes.
Or you can't do both. And I often find that interesting because you think, I've made assumptions, and this is particularly when you're starting with startups or working with startups or starting other small businesses. I'm making an assumption that business doesn't make money. Or I'm assuming that you as a photographer, it's a bit of a weird thing, then that's okay. Maybe you're just getting by, so I should give you my coaching services for free or for whatever because, I want to help you. It's like, dude, I actually don't need help. Can I help you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting tension. I think you're right. It comes from that everybody else first, that nurturing, and it is cliche, but the reason it's cliche is because it's true. Not because somebody decided in a marketing world that, well, let's make up what women do. We pretend that they're these, nurturing, do your real job before you get to your joy job.
Yes, exactly. And I think that the best way we can help people isn't necessarily giving away our hours for free, because at the end of the day, we have a certain number of hours where we have to earn enough money to pay for our living expenses, just the cost of living. So a better way to help can be connecting two people who you think would work really well together. Or some other, there's so many ways you can help and support people without it costing you not being able to make your mortgage repayments.
True.
And it's so important. And that's something that I actually want to touch on, because when I became a single mum with two children, 1 and 4, they were, and all of a sudden everyone's like, but you can't be pursuing, do you really want the stress of being a business owner right now? I said, I don't really have much choice.
Do you want me to sell my soul instead?
Yes, what do you think I should do? And there was so much pressure to put, I think you should just, get a simple job that's not going to be stress, that you can just go to work and not think about it. And my response to that is, do you think that low income equates to low stress?
Yeah.
Because it does not. On 2 factors. Have you ever worked on a checkout in retail coming up to Christmas? That's horrendous. Or like Mother's Day, being a waitress. That's hard work. That is not low stress. And secondly, low income. If you're aiming for low income and it's not going to cover your expenses, that's very stressful. So the idea that when I became a single parent, there was such a push from so many people to go, just be humble.
Do the easy bit,
this is what most people in your situation have to do. And my answer is, fuck that. I'm not most people.
No.
And
I'll define my situation, thank you.
Here's my outgoings. Here's what I can do. I could go back into resources, but that's not going to work because I have sole custody of 2 very young children who weren't even school age. So I can't go FIFO. We'd already relocated, but the 2 girls were already suffering quite a bit from suddenly losing contact, not my choice, but losing contact with one parent. So going into long daycare was not working for them at all. That was quite traumatic. So I pulled them back to quite small hours. So the only option was for me to fend for myself and go, I'm going to make this work. Now, at the time, I had this skill set that I learned over the last 10 years, probably about 8 years. I had a drive that is bordering on probably unhealthy sometimes. And I had a skill and something that was so unique. I'm like, why not? Because the only way I could survive financially was not getting a job at Woolies and knowing that I was 20 to 30,000 a year short. That's not going to work. And not only that, I've got lower super. I can't invest. The long-term prospect was so bad. It was not even worth thinking about. And yet that was but you're a single mum now. You need to think of the kids.
So I am thinking of the kids. Because also what goes with that is, what example do you want to set for them? Is it, it's okay, we don't deserve to have nice things?
Yes.
You're going to be explaining and feeling less in your social environment because I can't provide for you in a way that I choose to.
Mm-hmm.
How is that helping the kids? Or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think setting a good example, especially, I think I was just destined to have girls, given my background and how ferociously I've always fought to be treated equally and for all people, not just the male female divide, but of all people to be treated equally. And I feel very hurt. I'm too much of an empath. I don't like when other people are put down or bullied or not given opportunities.
Yeah.
I personally feel that, and it affects me way more than I should let it. But I don't like it.
There's that should word again.
Should I know? But I was destined to have girls. I think it was quite funny because both times I thought I was having a boy and then they were both girls. I'm like, watch out, world. But I came from a very strong mother. And both my parents were so equal. They both worked. They both did housework. They both cooked. They both cleaned. So to me, not to have that was kind of bizarre. And very strong grandmothers. So, and then on my ex-husband's side, very strong mother again, strong grandmothers. So I was destined to have very, very strong-willed daughters. God help us all.
And look out, world, here we come. Yeah, how does it go? You don't want to go, you don't want the world to go, oh, look, she's awake. You go, she's awake. What's she up to now? That's what we want. The interesting thing about that is that we do see, even now, in fact, probably even more so now, an inequality still within our workplaces, in our places where we worship, in our general communities, social media, all that sort of kind of stuff. But what I really notice it's not so much my children. My youngest is 32-ish. It's not so much those ones, but the ones which have come, the children which have come after. Their way their friendships are defined, the way that they interact, their acceptance of each other is very different than what I grew up with and what, to a certain extent, my children grew up with. So it's interesting where you've said such strong women influence your world and your ex-husband's world. And I'm wondering if with all of these strong influences, this is what we have chosen to define as normal.
Yeah.
And that's rubbing off. Is that how we change things?
I think it is.
Is by going, no, that's not normal. This is normal. No, not that. This. And just going, this is normal.
Showing it, being the example. I said something recently to my daughter. She asked, is this, I can't remember how it came out. And I said, no, that's man-made. She said, no, Mum, lady-made.
Lady-made.
I was like, yes, high five. I love it. Yeah. But
that's back to that pendulum again, isn't it? Rather than just having, it's like some of the new words we've got. I mean, Webster's Dictionary, what was it? Had introduced 646 or whatever it was, new words to the Webster's Dictionary this year. And some of the words you're going around, you're thinking, no, that's actually a word which already existed. Now you're free to find it something else. I'm not sure I'm following this. Now, I get that making up new words can be tricky, but at some stage someone did.
Yeah.
We didn't magically appear with all of the words that we currently have.
Yeah.
So can't we be a little more imaginative rather than redefining something which is already there?
And the words we have aren't in English, speaking the English language. I listened to a podcast the other day debunking, someone had written in saying they'd read a stat that 50% of the English language is derived from French.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, actually, depending on how you define the 50%, it's actually more like 75%.
Yeah. And
I thought, that's interesting.
I mean, we've got friends of ours that speak other languages. And I remember when I was at school, it was, I had a great friend of mine who was ridiculously intelligent, went on to do a pure math, pure law degree until he worked out what he wanted to do at uni because he was French and he didn't want to go back to France because if he wasn't in study, they still had conscription.
Oh, yeah.
But he was the son of a diplomat who went to quite a normal public school in Melbourne. That was because in Brisbane, his dad decided that, private school is great, but let's, when our public school education is great and so I want a better rounding for my boys. But I'd go across to his place and they spoke 7 languages.
Wow.
Interchangeably. So we'd start in English and then as they found a better word, it would turn in, they'd add it, and suddenly there'd be a French word and a German word and an Italian word, and then you end up with this mix, and I have to go, stop, like, oh, sorry, and I go back to English. But it was just a fluidity of the language, which I thought was really nice, and that was completely normal for their environment, and it made it better.
Yeah.
Because it had more dimension, it had nuance, and I'm wondering if, I mean, that's obviously the language example, but if we can take that into our society,
Yeah.
just really from a concept point of view, that we would end up with a more balanced, more rounded, more accepting, more inclusive, more all the mores.
We would. 100%. And if you look at things like the statistics on injuries on oil rigs, when they have more women, you have less injuries. It's because women traditionally lead with more empathy, more compassion, or more nurturing. So when you take kind of those traditional, like stereotypical male traits and stereotypical women traits, and you merge them, you end up with a whole amazing thing.
Yeah.
And so much in leadership training now is about leading with empathy and understanding. And I think that's a great move. Something else I was going to say, but it's just popped out of my head. But it was, there's a report recently. I read about it on LinkedIn. I'll find the link and send it to you. And it was saying that women's ambition is equal to men's ambition, and they studied it. And that a big change, because it was slightly lower before COVID, but that the ability to work from home and all these flexible arrangements that came in with COVID really...
all these things that we couldn't possibly
do that before.
Until we could,
until we had to. And then we went, actually, it's okay if you work around school hours. Look at that. But that women were equally as enthusiastic and equally keen to progress in their career and get up to leadership. But when they looked at the number of women progressing in each stage, obviously the percentage of women drops way down. But that was all women. And when you broke it down into white women, Asian women, black women, then it dropped. White women are dropping so far, Asian women dropping a bit more, black women became almost non-existent in the upper echelons, like the C-suite. And that's where it's so important. I do not have experience as a woman of colour, but I listen to women of colour, and that's where we need to be listening. And although I talk so much about empowerment of women, and a lot of people roll their eyes, it doesn't happen these days. Like, no, we listen to each other. I don't understand your point of view because I have not lived that experience, but we have to listen to each other, and that's it.
And it doesn't mean we have to agree.
Doesn't mean
because we've got different frames and different everything. I completely agree with that. But it's interesting with that whole, how do you merge it together? So as a wrap up, with your girls coming through, obviously, again, with a very strong female role model, surrounded by other strong women doing things. I was going to say strong women things, but that sounds like
mostly just driving me a bit crazy, to be honest.
lifting careers. What do you see their future? Are they interested in how you run your business? Are they interested in what that looks like? Have they got other passions?
Not so much. They're still quite young at 4 and 6. They definitely are keen to explore the world. The way that they learn they don't thrive in traditional schooling, and I think probably in the same way that I didn't really. And with them, they really thrive to explore and are curious, and that's why I spend so much time at museums. But I'm hoping that with the experience that they have, one of the main things that I wanted to do when I had children was give them exposure to role models and connections. Because I had role models, but I didn't have connections. And I come from a very humble working class background. Everyone I knew was working class, but no one was academic and no one had followed the sort of career path that I was going down. So I didn't know about a lot of things, and there would be other people who joined uni and they were going to all these networking things and they had met all these people and had connections, and so-and-so's dad introduced them to someone else's uncle and now they got this job. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. So one of the main things I want my girls to know, that if they want to achieve, if they want to be a painter, they surround themselves by painters, successful ones who aren't successful but are great creators anyway, and they explore that, and they go, because you can't just go to uni and go this, and now there's a job. Exploring the full range of that subject area, I guess. So that's what I'm hoping.
So true immersion in something, and then from there finding the normalized community that goes with that.
Yes.
And in the true sense of normalized, what that looks like, and absorbing and learning and listening and sharing and being part of
Yes.
something.
Yes, definitely.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. That's been
thank you.
We had half a plan and we got taken out by the tech, which is why you can see it's clearly on a single screen. That's all right. I'm sure it'll work fine. So you've got workshops coming up. You've got all sorts of stuff like that.
I do.
Tell me all about that. I'm very excited.
So
Because again, that changes from a one-to-one to one-to-many model, which of course is a next leveling up in business.
Yeah, definitely. And it was something I've done a few before, and it's something I wanted to do because as soon as I learn something, the first thing I want to do is go, hey, everyone, look what I just did. Let me show you how I did it. But it's usually people are like, oh my God, here she goes again with her settings. And she's going to make us go. Like my dad loves planes, and every time he goes to an air show, he'll come back and like, would you like to look at 400 pictures of an airplane?
And you're going, but sure, I'd love to.
Great. But then that's where I got my interest from photography from as well. So I can't complain too much. I'm the same with rocks. Look at my rock I brought back. But the finding
that's why we business network, so people at barbecues don't go, she's on about her business again.
But that's where I loved creating the astro portraits because I wanted to make people feel amazing and beautiful in themselves, because being pregnant, you don't often feel very beautiful. You feel like a potato with nausea the whole time. So I wanted people to feel empowered and beautiful and like they were creating something memorable and that would be enjoyed not just by them but by future generations. And then I wanted to also show people how to do it themselves, because I just wanted to share it. I just have this urge. So I have my first workshop coming up this weekend, well, the Mandra-based workshop, that actually sold out in just one Facebook post.
Woohoo!
In 2 days, which I was a bit blown back by and got a little bit stuck when I had to then go, oh, I can't take any more bookings, but I was away from home. I was actually at swimming lessons with my daughters, and I'm there on my phone trying to log in, going, can't, stop taking orders, close off the contact form. So I oversubscribed it slightly, but that was so successful and I'm so excited, and now I've found all the people and I've spoken to them all and everyone's excited, and that's just I'm so excited to bring everyone together. So how it works is we're going to do a little workshop session first here at Watso, so in the classroom. We'll go through the settings of the camera because I want people to really understand what they're doing, so that when they leave, if they want to do something slightly different, they understand how to change it. Then we're going to go and shoot, and we're going to troubleshoot, and we're going to leave with a bunch of amazing raw images. And for the listeners who don't know, raw is a file format that we're saving in, where it saves all of the data from the sensor, as opposed to a JPEG where it's doing a little adjustment. It's a slightly smaller file size. We want all that data so that we can manipulate it however we want. Then we're going to come back in a week on Zoom, and I will show how I edit. So I'll get people to send me their files. So I'm editing their files in Lightroom and showing how I would do it. They can ask any questions, and I want everyone to leave with 1, 2, or 3 amazing pictures that they can send to the printer, get back, and put on their wall and go, I took that. I did that. Nice. That's me. And I'm so excited to share it. And then we're going to have a Facebook group, and it's very much about celebrating each other. And
sounds positivity. It sounds suspiciously like you're building a community, my friend.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
I know.
It is.
And that is so important, I think, in so many women-led businesses, is the community, the purpose, the coming together. And that is different.
Yes.
And though I spent a lot of years resisting that whole thing, but coming from the male-dominated world, it's like, it took me a while to go, actually, you know what? We can do this differently and be okay. Yeah. I don't have to do it that way. Exactly. I can do it this way. And that's so much what I'm hearing you say, the same thing.
And if I could just add another little thing in, because I know we're running short on time, but I've come from a world that was so competitive, and it was hustle culture, and it was a lot of backstabbing and a lot of just nastiness. That kind of corporate, that 80s model of working that just did not sit right, because like I said, I'm a bit of an empath. The idea of pushing someone aside to further yourself is not comfortable with me. And we'd been fed this narrative that women are bitchy, and I'm like, I actually haven't experienced that. And when we came together and I started to meet all these women after I had my children, and then I met all the mumpreneur group, and then I started to meet other people, and I'm like, hold on, this is not bitchy and it's not competitive.
No.
And half of my friends are photographers in the same genre, not so much astro portraits, but we were all doing family. And it was really collaborative.
Yeah.
Really collaborative. Because we might be all shooting families, but that person really specializes in one particular thing, and someone else, their customer service is what they're really going for. So you're targeting a slightly different audience, and we all work together. If I can't do this shoot, I send it off to that person. Oh, can you help this client out? And that's really what I'm loving, is I found this community that is so supportive, and we all celebrate each other, and there's none of that undercutting at all.
Yeah, no, I think we can clone that and out in Lightroom, stomp, stamp, and it's just, and make that normal, make that just the way things are, rather than going, oh, look what's happening over there. This is just the way we work. This is just the way we work,
and that is something I demonstrate to the kids, and we talk about it at school drop off. And so I said, oh, that person's got a new bike. Yeah, it's such a cool new bike. Look how well they're riding it, and just make it always positive.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Coming on your workshop on the weekend. Very looking forward to tuning up my skills. And I think we'll have to get you back in season 2 to see how it's gone and how that's scaled, and whether that's had the impact that you wanted to with that one-to-many model, and see what we do there.
Yes, great. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Now, it's really, really difficult to do a radio show such as Women in Business without fabulous sponsors. And this show is powered by Ignition App. They help you sell, bill, and get paid for your services, and they do it all in one place. So with Ignition, it's easy to engage with clients, engage with online proposals, engagement letters, automatic invoicing, payment collection, all of the things that go with actually the finance side of doing what you love to do. So the clients that you love to serve also love dealing with you, because things are just simple, not complicated, even slightly. So you can start your free trial today with Ignition App, and they're offering you 50% off for 3 whole months on the Pro or the Scale plans. So if you'd like to have a chat with these guys, see what it's all about, zip down and have a look in the link below.